and welcome to the SCI GUYS, the show where we talk about the crazy, weird, and wonderful stories from the science world. I'm Corey, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, the Luciferous Luke Cutforth.
I don't know what that means.
This week, we're talking about bitey boys and python poison. But first, a wee review. This one says, absolutely my favourite podcast. It is 5 stars, and it goes on to say, love you guys so much. I've always been interested in science, but thought I wasn't because of school and the way it's taught. Thanks for showing me how interesting science is and making it fun to learn. My favourite episode is definitely Split Brains, as well as pretty much anything that delves into psychology.
Add SCI GUYS to the national curriculum.
Look, the one time that we did this and I met a parent afterwards, they weren't happy with me. So I don't know if I want to be putting this out to many children who have parents for the parents to be mad at me.
A-levels.
I had to look a man in the eye and apologize for letting their child know what analingus meant.
They're going to find out someday.
Anyway, I have a question for you all. If you're watching on YouTube, get down to the comments and answer this. If you're listening on Apple or anywhere else, get down to the comments and answer this. And if you're on Spotify, get down to the comments and answer this. And also, I think you can answer questions on Spotify now as well, so do that too. This question for you is... Have you ever been bitten by a snake?
No, I have not been bitten by a snake.
You've not been bitten by a snake?
Not even by, I've held a snake, a little baby snake that can't hurt me. Maybe it bit me, I don't know. Maybe it did bite me, but it didn't have teeth, so I don't remember it.
I don't think you can bite without teeth. I think teeth are an integral part of biting.
Have you ever been gummed by a snake?
So, what we're talking about today is the science of anti-venom. Now, there's a reason for this. It's because I was sat at home, and I was just doing what I do. You know, I had my mind wandering away, and it wandered to, hey, how do we make anti-venom again? Because I'm pretty sure we make anti-venom from snake venom, but how do we make it, what's the process for it? Because that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in how we produce products from living things. That's why I studied it at uni. I know that's a boring thing to find interesting, industrial processes, but it's not boring. It isn't.
I once watched a half an hour of documentary on how traffic lights work. So
anyway, venom isn't like lights or traffic. I'll tell you why.
You don't have to tell us why. We're good on that. I think.
I'll tell you why. It's because venom is a poisonous secretion of an animal.
Unlike a traffic light, which is a traffic light.
That is very true. And as far as I'm aware, traffic lights aren't terribly poisonous.
Are spiders animals?
Yes.
But then, okay, really? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't remember the categories. They're insects. Are insects animals? Apparently. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I've learned something already. You've done your job.
If you can see it, and it's not a plant or a fungus, it's probably an animal.
PlayStation.
Look, if it's a living thing that you can see with the naked eye, and it's not a plant or a fungus, it's probably an animal.
Okay, thank you very much.
I love our biological... yes, here is my taxonomic classification system. If you can see it, and it isn't a plant or a fungus, it is an animal.
Wow, thanks, Darwin.
That's what he said. No, so venom is a poisonous secretion of an animal. It's not just from snakes. It's just, that needs to be said. Mm-hmm. Snakes are not the only kind of animals that have venom. I assume you were talking about spiders because you were like, oh, that's confusing, but spiders don't have venom. Yes,
spiders do have venom. Yeah. But I thought spiders weren't animals, so I was going to question your definition.
Oh, no. They definitely, they definitely are animals, and they definitely do have venom. Bees also have...
What? That's venom?
So a poison... I should finish the definition for venom, because I read the first part of it, and I didn't finish it. It's a poisonous secretion of an animal produced by specialized glands that are often associated with spines, teeth, and stings, or other piercing devices. Basically, the difference between venomous and poisonous generally, right, is if it bites you and you die, it's venomous. If you bite it and you die, it's poisonous.
Okay, so bees, they die. So that's poisonous.
Right. Okay. So how I said it was a general thing?
Yeah.
What I mean is basically venom is they're all about like toxins, right?
Yes.
So, you can get toxins from different places. I believe that poison dart frog builds up toxins in its body through the food that it eats. Snakes produce venom in venom glands in their body from the time that they are a wee baby snake. There's different ways of acquiring venom, right? Or acquiring a toxin. Now, if that toxin is present throughout an organism's body, and it would result, if you were to eat said organism, and that would result in an unwanted, or not even unwanted, I guess, because if you lick a toad, if it's some kind of like negative physiological effect, that would be poisonous.
Okay.
And again, it doesn't need to kill you to be poisonous necessarily, but it would kill something, right? Like, I mean, the idea of what a poison is it's an annoying kind of category.
Yeah. Like caffeine, where caffeine, like, it kills a bunch of stuff, but to us, it makes us go, wee, I want to do some work. Yeah,
because it's generally used, so caffeine is a compound that plants use to defend against generally insects biting them. So if an insect bites and eats this part of the plant, it'll get a bunch of caffeine in it, and then the insect might die. Or it'll get so mad on it, right? It's like, oh, yeah, man, let's go, that it'll...
Still talking about caffeine?
Yeah, it's a little insect, remember?
Okay.
It will essentially die, right? Or it won't focus on it. All of these sorts of things, right? But for humans, we're much bigger, and so can take a much higher dose of caffeine before we succumb to its effects.
Yes.
The same with like alcohol and whatnot. Like we can process alcohol, and we actually, that was I think an evolutionary thing for us, where the ability to process alcohol became quite good for us because it meant that we could spec into eating somewhat rotten fruits and be all right. And then we discovered, hey man, this gets you waved. Maybe we should do this on purpose. So yeah, I mean, a lot of the things that, a poison, what is a poison? Do you know?
No, I don't.
The Google definition, I believe from the Oxford English Dictionary or whatever, who cares? A substance that's capable of causing the illness or death of a living organism when introduced or absorbed, right? But the thing with poison is that, it's about the dosage, right? Pretty much anything in a high enough dosage can kill you. Water, there's a toxic level of it. That's why poisons and toxins, it bugs me, because it's like, if there's enough of it, it'll kill you. If there's not enough of it, it won't. But it can still damage you. It's just, I guess there's almost an arbitrary line, I feel, where you cut off, where it's like, this thing is potent enough to kill you in a small enough dose that we've got a specific name for it.
And it's also relative then to the organism that's eating it, which is interesting, because you think of like, oh, this is a poison, like a noun, but it might not be poisonous to something, in which case, relative to that animal, it's not a poison, which is very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about antibiotics, for example. Like, is that poisonous? No, but to bacteria? Yeah, poisonous. I guess. Yeah. I mean, like pesticides, there's a reason that, pesticides are 100% like toxins, like poisonous, right? They will wreck you. But in low enough doses, we're probably fine. Yeah. Right? That doesn't, don't eat pesticides. Yeah. And there's obviously some pesticides that are so potent that, they are very dangerous for us. I mean, in general, pesticides are dangerous for us because they are poisons, but it comes down to the dose that you take in, right? One tiny dose of poison isn't the same as a bigger dose of poison, obviously. This might be very obvious to some people, but I'm just laying the groundwork here. Anyway, so venom is a poisonous secretion of an animal produced by specialized glands that are often associated with spines, teeth, stings, or other piercing devices. Basically, venom is something that is like put into another organism's body, like sort of, I guess, intentionally, sort of like injected in or something like that. You've got even like spitting cobras, which, by the way, I've heard this. I don't know how true this is, but I've heard it from a few places where how you've got those spitting snakes that will spit basically venom at you. Now, apparently, it makes some semblance of sense for them to have evolved to do that in in response to being hunted or killed by hominids, sort of human-like creatures, like our sort of ancestors and whatnot, because the way that they spit, it gets into your eye, right, which can blind you temporarily or permanently, but there aren't other animals that would be very useful for. in the way that they're sort of doing it. Basically, I'm not saying this is absolutely the case, but I think I've heard some people say that that's why they evolved to do that, to sort of against us, which is interesting because we don't often think of animals evolving specifically to compete against our biological ancestors.
Yes, we almost conceptualize of ourselves as like we've been plonked in nature, and nature's been doing nature thing, and we're almost like aliens to nature as opposed to like part of nature.
No, yeah, absolutely. So back to the venom. We'll get to it, honestly. Back to the venom. Now, it could be used to kill or paralyze prey, or it could be defensive. Some venoms, it says as well, also act as digestive fluids. Now, people get, obviously, people can be poisoned by venomous things. We're wandering about. I mean, if you step on a stonefish that's shot into you, that is one of my biggest fears, because I was really into Australian wildlife as a child, and I read so many books on it, and now I'm scared of stepping in the water, because what if it's a stonefish and it shoots me with its barbs and I die? What if that happens? What if I'm looking at this is a rock? No, it's not. It's a stonefish. You're dead.
You can't just be what-ifing forever, Corey.
What if I run into a jellyfish? What if I run into a Portuguese man of war?
Yeah.
Or a box jellyfish, huh?
Yeah.
What if that happens?
Well, then, you'll die.
I very well might. I don't know, though. Who knows if I can die? But many thousands of humans do die from venom poisoning. And I think specifically I've got a number of people that die from snake bites. Over 100,000 people worldwide each year die from snake bites. So you've got an overview of what venom is. How does venom work?
Okay, so, well, I suppose...
And not just snake venoms, by the way, just venom as a general concept. How does it work?
Okay, well, firstly, I would say that I think they probably work in lots of different ways.
Ding, ding, ding.
Okay, but one such way that I've heard is like it interrupts some proteins in your blood, or like interrupts the way that oxygen binds to your red blood cells, or like that kind of thing. Like interrupts some process that is like really crucial to being alive.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's one way.
Chemistry, isn't it?
Yeah, biochemistry. In fact, there's lots of different ways for different venoms to work. I mean, so venoms are generally sort of like mixtures of enzymes that will do a thing. So an enzyme. Do you know what an enzyme is?
A protein? No?
It's not just
it's a digestive protein.
What? No, it's not. Digestive proteins are enzymes. But
okay.
So an enzyme is a protein. Think of it as like a protein catalyst. I need to explain what a catalyst is as well.
I know what a catalyst is.
What's a catalyst?
Something that assists a reaction with something else.
But is not
like
itself,
binds,
it's not itself used up in the reaction.
Yes.
Yeah, so...
I definitely was going to say that next.
So a catalyst can essentially speed up a reaction, but it's not itself used up. It could hold things in a way that it lowers the energy needed for this reaction to occur, for example, right? Enzymes are basically biological catalysts. They are proteins that, they're very specific, and they aid in certain reactions. So digestive proteins will digest, essentially. Digestive enzymes will digest whatever it is that you're eating. You've got enzyme. I mean, a lot of enzymes do a lot of digestion, to be perfectly honest with you. They break stuff up an awful lot, but they can also build stuff up back together. Enzymes control, the building and breaking down of your DNA, for example, as well. Enzymes can do lots of different things here, right? So if you hear the word enzyme, just think of it as a protein that causes or helps a specific kind of chemical reaction, right? So neurotoxin venoms, for example, mess up the brain and the nervous system. Hemotoxins, which is kind of what you were referring to there, I think, affect blood or blood vessels. So there's you could have it one that destroys anticoagulants or coagulants in your blood, which would basically make you just bleed out.
Yes, what's the one?
Hemophilia.
Hemophilia, yes.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So the coagulants in your blood, like platelets and all that nonsense, when you cut yourself, it's like, oh, I'll just slice my body open there and I'll show people that's a silly thing to do. I'm not going to cut myself for the podcast.
Don't do that.
No, so if you were to cut yourself, you'd notice that the blood would start flowing out rather freely, and then it would start to slow, and then you'll get a scab and all that, right? The reason that the flow of blood is slowing down is because it's coagulating, it's thickening up. When you've got a cut, your body's like, oh, hey, I'm leaking my fluids. Better plug that leak. And so the blood just basically thickens through whatever process, right? Some snake venoms can stop that. So it's like, I've bitten you, now you're bleeding, die.
Now you're dead.
Die. You're just leaking out blood faster than you can make it. You're going to die at some point, right? So that's one way. It could also, it could cause the exact opposite and make your blood clot, which, look, thick blood ain't so good for traveling, and blood transports oxygen around your body, along with other things, right? But the main thing that you're going to want is that oxygen. And if you've not got it around your body, you're going to die. So that's how that would work there. So another thing that they could do as well is like an allergic reaction sort of thing, right? So your body then just gets inflamed, and like your throat can close up, for example, right? And you can die that way through,
anaphylaxis.
Yes, like through anaphylactic shock, all that sort of stuff. What I want to get across here is that venoms are very different and very, very bloody cool. Like you could literally, I would literally just spend time just sitting and reading about a specific venom because it's interesting. They're all very interesting. So that is what venom is. It's, what is it?
It's a juicy thing that comes out of a gland that gets jabbed into you, usually by a fang, and it just screws you up in some way.
Yeah, spot on, pretty much, yeah. So what is antivenom then?
Well, it's the spell that stops the venom. It is something that basically reverses whatever chemical process has been started by the venom, right? Or maybe binds to the venom and makes the venom like inactive.
That was a very smart save there, sir. Yeah. So antivenom is essentially the treatment for venoms, right? And I guess it's very easy to be surprised at how antivenoms are made, but if you've got the sort of biological understanding, like the sort of foundational understanding, it makes so much sense. Like it's one of those things where if you've got that foundational level of knowledge and you didn't sort of put two and two together, when you realize it and it clicks, you're like, oh yeah, duh. How else would we do it? It's like the easiest way. So let's get into it. It was first created in 1890s by a protege of Louis Pasteur. Do you know who that is?
I can't remember what he did though.
Pasteurization.
Oh yes, okay.
Yeah. So it was a guy named Albert Camet. He was in Vietnam, and a flood basically shoved a lot of cobras into where he was living.
A flood? Oh, right, okay.
Well, the snakes are like, I don't want to drown in a flood.
Right.
So
I thought you meant they got like swept in on a wave through the window.
I mean, it's the actual words I've got in front of me are was living in present-day Vietnam when a flood forced monocled cobras into a village near Saigon.
Okay.
So whether it was
That's
forced,
not at all
it's
what I
not
was
clear.
thinking.
It's not clear.
Like, just a wave came along and loads of snakes were deposited in his house, and he was just getting bitten all over the place. And he's like, I should invent antivenom.
It's like the sequel to Sharknado. No, so
Snake-nado. We need to make Snake-nado now.
So 40 people were bit, and 4 people died from these snake bites.
Okay,
yeah.
I will take back my laughter.
Yeah,
Snake-nado.
Sorry, I am very cruel. It is very fun to watch you spin your wheels and then find out that there was a horrible tragedy.
You love leading me into a little alley, don't you? Just put me down the bottom alley, make me say something insensitive, and then go, so loads of people died.
I didn't make you say a single thing. Moving on, so in Saigon, 40 people were bitten, and he was like, oh wow, that sucks. There's nothing we can do about this yet because it is 1890s. Or 1890, whatever. Anyway, so in 1890, he met Louis Pasteur. Pasteur was impressed by all the stuff that he was working on. And he was the one that sent him off to Saigon to go work there at the Pasteur Institute in Saigon. And so he saw the snakes there and the lethal effect that they could have. And he was like, oh boy, that's something we should be working on. So he started, he published He published a paper on snake envenoming, and was testing different things as treatments. He published that in 1891. And then he successfully managed to make an anti-cobra serum, it says here, in 1894 in rabbits. And it was, he basically kind of based his work on vaccines, like early vaccines. So it says here it was based on Henry Sewell, who described repeat inoculations of pigeons with sublethal doses of rattlesnake venom to achieve an increasing resistance to its toxic effects. And, it's the idea of like a vaccine is giving you a little bit. I mean, okay, I'm going to simplify vaccines to the point of
ridiculousness. Yes.
Okay.
Especially, you're going to simplify one specific type of vaccine as well.
Yeah. So some vaccines essentially work by introducing a small amount of the poison or whatever it is into the body so that the body can develop a resistance to it. That is not how vaccines actually work. It's much more complicated, but if we're going to simplify it, you put a little bit of the bad thing in and your body's like, I know how to deal with this now.
Yep.
That was the foundational sort of underlying thing for this sort of antivenom, which is really interesting because, it seems almost like that sort of pseudoscience, like, I give you a little bit of the thing that kills you and it makes you stronger again. So it's like something you get out of some Greek myth. And, imagining that it would work the same for antivenom, for venoms as it does for, like the flu, seems mad also because this is a chemical and that is a virus. These are not, viruses are chemicals, but, they're not necessarily exactly the same thing. But they both work by exactly the same bloody process, and it's brilliant. Yeah,
and it's also like you don't necessarily expect that the immune system is what's dealing with like other random chemicals that come into your body. Like if you eat some poison from a plant, you don't assume that it's your immune system that deals with that.
Yeah, I guess most people wouldn't necessarily assume that.
But they'd be wrong, I assume.
I don't know what people would assume. All I know is what I know, which is not very much. No, I'm joking. Anyway.
But it's more than most of you. And me. That's why we're here, isn't it? That's why we're listening to you. We don't listen to podcasts by people who know significantly less about the topic than us.
I think that'd be fun. I'd want to listen to a podcast where I know, like, I know more than the person talking. That'd be fun.
But what I mean is, like, you're talking about such a wide range of topics
absolutely.
that most people won't know more than you. And you're sat with research in front of you. Yeah.
I don't know more. I just have research in front of me.
Yes.
So anyway, that's kind of how it was discovered, I guess, or first produced, invented. I don't really like saying invented because it wasn't. I wouldn't say that it was invented. Mm-hmm. We'll get to why that is in a sec. So. So he basically was injecting animals with really small doses of venom, and trying to produce some sort of cure or treatment from that. So in 1895 he began production. It says here at the Pasteur Institute in Lille, in France.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know why I sounded surprised. That was the one thing I knew about that place. That's the one thing I knew about the place that it was definitely in France. I just didn't know how to pronounce it because French is a silly language where half the letters don't count. Anyway, so he began production of basically anti-venom in 1895 by basically injecting horses with venom of the Naja snake.
I don't understand that jump. So he started injecting animals with small amounts of venom, and they've become somewhat resistant to the venom. How has he then got the anti-venom?
We'll get to it.
From that.
So
is he feeding people the horses?
Here's the thing. So what would happen is he'd inject the horses with the venom, and the horses would then produce antibodies to that venom. What are antibodies?
I think they're like a little key, almost like a little key that goes into the keyhole on the virus, or in this case, like the venom, and like binds to it and makes it basically inert, like useless.
Broadly, yeah. An antibody,
like a Lego block.
Well, so an antibody is a Y-shaped sort of thing in your body, and it's a protein that's sort of Y-shaped. So if you Google antibodies, it's like you'll see like two lines that look like a capital Y. It's also got, you might also have heard of it as immunoglobulin. Essentially, it's just a protein that they're very, very specific proteins, right? So an antibody for one thing isn't going to be the same as an antibody for another thing. Mm-hmm. They bind to a foreign thing in the body, the thing that the body doesn't want to be there, unless except in the cases of sort of what are they called, autoimmune disorders, where they'll start binding to things that they're not supposed to. But basically, they're produced to sort of bind to very specific foreign objects or whatever in the body, right? So if there's a chemical in your body and your body's immune system sees that chemical and it's like, doesn't see it, but it sees the chemical and it's like, hey, you shouldn't be here. You should not be here. It's going to start developing antibodies to recognize and bind to that thing, and then it destroys it, your immune system takes care of it, right?
Yeah. I just find it really interesting, especially in the immune system, it's a little bit more of an active process, but I find really interesting how we talk about the body as like the body then does this, where like the specific example you're giving earlier about like blood coagulating and becoming thick, like that's the body is not doing that. It's like I know you know this, but it's just really interesting to me how we talk about bodies as like the body then does this, whereas actually it's like the chemical properties of blood mean that when it is flowing out of the body through a cut, it starts to thicken, and the platelets deposit and things like that. It's not like a central, like the brain has gone, aha, we need to start doing this thing now. The antibodies are a bit more like that. Or does it? Maybe they do. Maybe it releases more of something into the blood when it detects a leak. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the thing is, like, yes, coagulation does happen as a property of blood. I just don't personally know whether there are, the body will secrete coagulation factors to aid in coagulation if something like that is detected. You know what? I don't know, and that is everyone's homework. They can find that out for themselves, because I'm not looking up coagulation right now.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Back to antibodies. The sort of the foreign things, the things that your body doesn't want, would generally be referred to as antigens, right? So you've got antibodies that sort of match up to antigens. Now, when I say it's specific, I really very much do mean that, and that's a very important thing when it comes to antibodies. An antibody for one virus is not going to recognize, venom or something, right? Like an antibody, your body will produce an antibody for a specific antigen. And it will remember. It will. If that thing comes back into your body will be like, oh, I'll just produce this same antibody for this thing again. That's how vaccines work, right? Like your body has produced antibodies for this thing, and then the thing is gone. It's not really producing antibodies anymore, but it's kind of got that memory there. And when the thing comes back, maybe years later, let's say you've got a vaccine, and then you've got you're immune to the thing, and a couple years later, the thing is introduced to your body. Your body's like, oh, I know how to deal with this. Here are the antibodies to deal with this thing, because I've already made them. I've already got it on the books, right? Because obviously there's a bit of a time lag to make a specific antibody for a specific antigen before that antigen basically bloody kills you, right? Like that's why we use vaccines, because it's much quicker to produce an antibody that your body's basically already got on file, right?
Yes.
I want to be clear here that I'm speaking broadly and using euphemisms. It is not literally like a sort of filing system that your body has. It's a bit more complex. Don't take what I'm saying too literally.
There's a really good Kurzgesagt book about this, actually.
Like, really?
Kurzgesagt made
I've got it upstairs.
Yeah, me too, in my house. Like a really good book on, in very great detail, how the entire immune system works, but in a way that most people can actually access it, like a Kurzgesagt video.
What they do is I respect so much, because they have to simplify such complex concepts without losing really important details about them. It's a very difficult thing to do, and they do it quite well, I would say.
You do it too.
I don't do it that well. I'm winging it over here, man. Oh, no. But no, so you understand what antibodies are now, right? Antibodies are, they recognize an antigen, a foreign thing in your body, and it basically means that you can deal with it. It's not going to cause you harm, right? Now, I mean, that's how it was first invented. How do you think we make antivenom now? How would you guess we make antivenom now?
Well, I would guess that we have made it in a horse, for example, at some point, and we know the rough chemical structure. We know the exact chemical structure of that antigen, and then we have processes, in inverted commas, to make any kind of chemical we like nowadays.
No. So,
great.
Let's go through the steps of making
please.
an antivenom.
Do we still use horses? Are there like millions of horses locked up somewhere making antivenoms for us?
So step one,
yep,
you got to get a snake.
Okay. And step two, a horse?
Horses come later.
Oh, no. We're not just raising them. We're getting bit by snakes too.
So
and this is why I'm vegan.
What you do is you get yourself a snake. And not just one snake. You need quite a few snakes. Yeah. At least 5 or more. This is very much leaning towards the or more.
This is sounding like witchcraft, by the way. It sounds like a recipe for a potion.
Yes.
Get some snakes.
Luke? Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
So you need to get a lot of snakes. Then you quarantine your snakes.
For how many moons?
weeks to months, it says.
Okay, several lunar cycles then.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Oh, and also I should point out, do you know why snakes are immune to their own venom?
Because I imagine they leak like a little bit of it into their bloodstream and then they build up, like how you like your own farts, because they go through your blood into your nose.
Sure. I don't know. I don't want to endorse that.
Once. I was like, why do people not mind the smell of their own farts? And one of the theories was like, maybe tiny bits of fart get into your bloodstream and go to your nose, and they desensitize you to your own fart.
Okay, I'm glad you said the maybe there, because I don't want to endorse that, because I have no idea.
Maybe. Anyway, but in snakes, yes.
Yeah, baby snakes have venom flowing through their blood, like tiny little bits at all times. Not enough to cause them issues, but enough that they've got a resistance to their own venom.
Cool.
Now, there is also the king cobra, called such. It's not actually technically a cobra, I believe, but look, I looked this up recently. Cobras aren't all cobras.
We need to recategorize everything. There's so many stupid things.
We don't.
Polycystic ovary syndrome doesn't require you have polycysts.
No, so the issue is also like colloquial names for things. Moving past it. Okay. King cobra, I believe, is called such because it eats other snakes.
Just like our king.
Yeah, but its Latin name is literally like snake eater. It's like what is it? It's like Oreophagus. I don't know, something fagus, right? Oreos. So now it's going to get bit if it's trying to eat other snakes, right? They have done this different thing where they've literally evolved resistance to snake venoms, to lots of snake venoms. So snakes, snakes don't have an inbuilt resistance to their own venom. They just get that comes as a part of their immune system, and they have to leak their venom. So, like, let's say, for example, a snake were not to be leaking its own venom into its blood. It likely would not be able to build. It potentially would not be able to build up a resistance to that. I don't know if that's the case, but following that very, very basic understanding of why snakes are immune to their own venom, let's say that were the case, right? Contrasting that, a king cobra, literally, it evolved over so long an immunity to different snake venoms, which means that they come out ready to go. They're like, sure, bite me. I'm a little baby snake, bite me. See what happens, bro. Ain't gonna do nothing because I'm a king cobra. I'm not even a cobra, but I'm a king cobra. I found that really interesting. Anyway, shall we get back to how to make antivenom?
Yeah, go on.
So here is how to make antivenom. First off, you've got to get yourself a snake. And then the second step is to get yourself way more snakes, because one is not nearly enough. You quarantine your snakes, make sure they're all nice and healthy, and then you got to milk them. Now, before you milk a snake, what do you have to do?
Find the snake titties.
Put on gloves to stop the snake from biting you with its venom.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're milking the snake for its. Yeah.
So you're milking like the fangs.
So this is how you do it. You basically you get your snake, you kind of get it to bite this. Well, I've seen this before, and if it's what I'm thinking it is, it's just a vial with a plastic or sort of rubber film across the top. You get the snake to bite it, and then you sort of gently massage in a specific point that causes it to continually secrete venom from its venom glands into the little vial. You're literally just like it's like you get a snake head, pop onto a vial, and then just like squeeze out the venom into the vial. Now there's a dude called Bill Hast who used to do this barehanded until he got bit by a snake and then could no longer wrangle snakes because he got bit on the finger. But I think this might also be the guy that became immune to a number of different snake venoms. I'll talk more about that person in a bit. So basically, to milk a snake for its venom, you just need to pop its head onto a vial and get the get the venom out. I mean, you can literally get forceps and like pull their fangs, not pull their fangs out, but what I mean by pull their fangs out is that snakes can often sort of retract their fangs, as in like sort of, if you're listening what I'm doing, go and watch it. It's very difficult to explain. They can kind of do this, so their fangs are kind of like
flicking them out.
Flicked out.
Like
so
cat claws.
Cat claws are kind of different. I think they're more like sheathed back, and they're like sprung out. It's more, I think, with some snakes, it's more sort of like flicking like out into an upright position, in the same way that if you were to try and clap with one hand,
like the wheels on an aeroplane.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Kind of like that.
Yeah. I think that like some snakes do that. Snakes have different kinds of fangs, obviously. It also specifies that if you've got a certain species of snake that have their fangs farther back in their mouth, you can get specialist things or use a kind of tube to do it. They also, for really dangerous ones, they might anesthetize them, basically knock them out so they don't get all aggressive and try and bite you whilst you're trying to milk them. So once you've got all of the venom, and they can, by the way, sometimes as well, they can use like a little electric currents to stimulate them to make them produce more venom.
They do that with like cows or something. Like
really?
they like put a thing up their ass that makes them come. If you want to get the semen, like bulls. Yeah,
right.
They seriously.
I'm glad you said bulls because when you said cows, I was very confused as to why. No, don't apologize.
Yeah, no, it's fine. No, cow is a gendered term, and I didn't realize that. But yeah, with bulls, you can like electrocute them up the ass, and then they give you the goods.
Bulls are into kinky stuff. Thank you for sharing, Luke. I didn't know that. So, how much venom do you think you can get from a snake, or how long does it take to get? How long do you think it takes to get, say, a pint of coral snake venom?
Oh God, like a year.
Right. So
I think you get like a milliliter a day from one snake.
So Bill Hast, who I just mentioned, the guy that was one of the most famous snake wranglers,
raw dogging the snake venom milking.
He could for a long time. He was very, very good at it. Now, he he got a pint of coral snake venom over the course of 3 years and 69,000 milkings. And that was where, and from that, the first and only American coral anti-venom was made.
69,000 milkings. I don't like that sentence. That's not nice.
Of snakes. Oh.
That doesn't make it better.
No. Venomous snakes.
Sometimes I like to imagine the world, if you were like an alien anthropologist and you were like observing the world and you're like, oh, these like bald monkeys are like milking the snakes. Like that's what we're doing. We're like, there's a bunch of bald monkeys and they're milking the snakes.
Yeah, they're taking the poison from the snakes and then they're putting it in. What are they doing? What are they doing? Ding-a-ling-ling, is that the ad bell?
I hope so. We don't have any other bells in this room.
Well, I'll tell you what we don't have in this room, Luke. We don't have people who have subscribed to SCI Guys on YouTube and followed us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
I actually have done all those things.
I have too. But why don't we tell people about why specifically that is a very cool and interesting thing for them to do?
Well, we want to be everywhere with you all the time. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, we want to be there with you. If you're on Spotify, we want to be there with you. And if you're on YouTube, we want to be there with you. And you probably want us to be there with you too.
Even if you prefer to listen on Spotify and don't really watch us on YouTube all that much, it really helps if you subscribe on every single platform because it gets us in front of more people, which means it makes it easier to make this show, which you love, right? You love it. You love us, right?
Give me love. Validate my soul.
Subscribe to SCI Guys on YouTube and follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify right now.
Heal the deep, deep chasm in my heart.
Let's get back to the show. Pfizer, a company now owned by Pfizer, was producing that antivenom until 2003, and then it closed the factory. We'll get into that more later. So 69,000 milkings to get 1 pint of coral snake venom, and that was the first and only coral snake antivenom in America that was made from this guy spending 3 years milking snakes 69,000 times. And so after you've milked it, you've got to cool the venom really, really cold, below minus 20 Celsius. You can freeze dry it, basically removing the water and getting it really cold. Now you do that so that it stays stable. I mean, its venom is not terribly shelf stable as far as I'm aware. And you need to clearly note it because snake venom can differ between like old snakes, young snakes, depending on where they're from as well. We're not going to be exactly the same. Mm-hmm. And we live very near each other, relatively speaking, in the world. Yep. Two snakes aren't going to be exactly the same either, and there are maybe little differences in the venom that they produce here and there, right? Evolution, mutations, all of that nonsense, right? So you've frozen you've cooled down and labeled your venom. And then you need to pick which animal you're going to immunize with it. Usually we'd use horses. You can use sheep, goats, lots of different things. Sharks, you can use sharks as well.
That sounds incredibly impractical.
Difficult to handle. That's why we don't tend to use sharks. Apparently, I've got it on good authority that they make good antibodies. However, they're sharks. So, horses tend to be... I've been bitten by a horse. I've not been bitten by a shark, but I've been bitten by a horse. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'd rather be bitten by a horse again than be bitten by a shark.
Yeah.
You know, so you can see why we use horses
down. That's good.
Exactly. So, I mean, one of the reasons, I mean, what are some reasons that you think we use horses over other animals?
Well, they're already domesticated.
Yeah.
They're quite big, so they make quite a lot of anti-venom.
Mm.
Is there more? They've got similar immune systems to us in some ways. They're mammals, at least. It's not relevant.
No, I mean, it's not really the most relevant thing.
Yeah, it's not relevant.
Yeah. No, they're big, they're friendly, and they'll let you inject them with a bunch of stuff a few times without getting annoyed at you.
Mm-hmm.
I've literally got a quote here that says, when they see you coming at them with a needle two to three times, they don't attack you. Which is good.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know, especially if you've got a whole big needle of anti-venom. I mean, it's been diluted and stuff, by the way. We're not just injecting horses with a pint of venom. Mm-hmm. They would probably die. No, so you sort of... You water it down with a sort of buffer or whatever, you know, to be the right sort of amount. So it's going to cause an immune response, but it's not going to harm the animal. So you could use your donkey, your rabbit, cat, chicken, camel, mouse, rats, whatever. Horses are good. So you've got your horse. You then measure out your venom, mix it with water or buffer solution. Then you also add in a chemical. Do you know what an adjuvant is? Adjuvant? I don't really know how to pronounce it, but I do know what the word means.
I don't know what the word means.
So you'll see them in vaccines as well. Basically something that pisses off the immune system a little bit so that it starts reacting.
Oh, like agitate. It's like to agitate something. No,
not really. So it's ADGUVANT.
Okay.
Yeah. So you've got your venom. You've diluted it. You've reconstituted it. Mixed it with the stuff. You've added in another little chemical that's going to wind up the horse's immune system and get it going so that it'll start producing antibodies for the venom. So you then inject a few mils of that into your horse. It says preferably on its rump or the back of its neck where lymph nodes and immune cells reside. And it, you can do it over a bunch of different places so that you don't start harming the horse's skin or whatever from injecting in the same place all the time. And at this point, it's really difficult to say exactly what happens because it depends on the type of antivenom, the company that's doing it, a lot of different things, right? And all of these processes are kept very secret, because people can make money from them.
Capitalism.
Yep. So they're basically seen as trade secrets, like the recipe for Coca-Cola, right? That sort of thing. And so you basically have just injected the horse with your venom, and it produces antibodies. And then about 8 to 10 weeks later, it's got the most antibodies you're going to get from it. So you take some blood from it, take 3 to 6 liters. Which sounds insane.
But it's a horse.
It's a horse.
So you're fine.
They're big. You take 3 to 6 liters from a person, they're dead.
A rabbit.
A rabbit is immediately dead.
Rabbit's already
a rabbit
less
is
than 6
drained.
meters. The whole rabbit's less than 6 liters.
I know, right? So you take it from the jugular according to WHO guidelines, World Health Organization. And then you just purify it, so you get rid of all of the stuff you don't want, basically.
Like the blood.
Like the blood cells, yeah. So you've just got the plasma with your antibodies in it and some other stuff. It says the World Health Organization recommends injecting the blood cells back into the horse, but they don't.
I doubt they do that.
They don't need it. They just make more. It's fine. Just make more blood. It's good. And then you've got your serum with your antibodies and a bunch of other junk in it, and then you wanna get rid of it. You just okay. It's a pain to describe all of this, but you just separate them out. I'm not going to explain exactly how. You end up with just your antibody, right? More or less. And then what it says as well is that you want to break down your antibody into small parts and find whatever part of it is that is like the bit, the active ingredient, the bit that is doing the work. And once you've done that, you've got a small antibody. Why would you want to have a smaller antibody? Just break off the rest of it and just have the bit that is the sort of reactive bit.
Well, I guess because you're going to make more of this and you don't want to waste your resources?
Oh, it's not even... No, it's literally... It's because having a bigger antibody is more likely to produce an immune response in someone. Because there's more bits of it for your body to react to, basically.
Right, so like per litre you inject?
No, I just mean like as in if the antibody is bigger,
yeah,
right, then there are more parts of that antibody that your body can recognize as being foreign. Whereas if it's just the one bit that you need...
Right.
It's only that one bit, so there's a lower chance of your body...
So it's about not getting your body to create an immune response to the antibody you're injecting into you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's like, and I want to be clear here, the reason that that's the case is that there are obviously chemicals on the outside, like not chemicals necessarily. Your body recognizes stuff based on the chemicals that are on the outside of the thing, right? Or chemicals that are secreted or whatever, right? It recognizes chemicals or whatever. Now, if you've just got fewer of those, then your body's less likely to recognize because, that makes sense?
Okay,
yeah. So that is sort of pretty much the sort of last steps there. You've got a small antibody and you can now inject that into a person. Once the FDA has approved it, you can inject that into a person and they will not die from a snake bite. If they've been bitten by the right snake and you've got the right antivenom, if you inject that into them, they are going to be fine. I mean, I think there's a hospital, I think in Brooklyn, that deals specifically with snake bites, and I don't think they've had a single death from anyone admitted to the hospital in the entirety of the time that they've been there. And they're specifically just for snake bites, and they have a whole bunch of antivenoms not just on file. They've got like a whole bunch of vials of them. They inject you with it, and over a little bit of time, and you're probably going to be fine, right? As I say, they've had no deaths. So once it's been approved by the FDA, same as any other sort of drug or food product or whatever, you will freeze dry it, concentrate it into a powder or a liquid, and then put it into vials for shipment. You need to keep it frozen or refrigerated. It needs to be at a really low temperature because obviously it's not necessarily super stable otherwise. You inject it intravenously once, if someone's been bitten, all that blah 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 blah. So you can kind of see why it costs a lot.
Yes.
Because it's a kind of labor intensive process. There's not really any way that you can speed it up. Or you've got to manually milk snakes, and then you've got to inject it into horses, and then you've got to keep it at a really low temperature. These are all things that cost a lot of money.
It blows my mind that we still haven't got the technology to look at a chemical and go, right, let's make more of that exact chemical, from scratch. Almost like, I know not literally like 3D printing, but we can't just go, right, let's make more of this specific chemical.
Yeah, I mean, it is possible to create antibodies using microbes. I mean, that's definitely a possibility. That is not what we do entirely.
But even there, what you just said, using micro, it's so interesting how we are still very reliant on ultimately nudging natural processes in a certain direction rather than having the equipment ourselves to just make it with a machine.
But we are basically doing it with machines. It's just living machines. It's like, why would we build?
No, I know.
No, I mean, and I understand what you're saying,
yeah.
and I very much like the idea. But what I want to get across to people watching and listening is that we are using machines. They're just living machines, right? What I see this as, as someone that studied biotechnology, is you saying, well, I don't know why we don't just, build a brand new factory with all of these intricate and specific things that are necessary, to produce this product. I don't know why we don't just build this factory. Why are we using this other factory that we've slightly repurposed that was already making the product before? It's like, we're just slapping a slightly different label on it, or we're changing one tiny thing about the product. It's like, because that factory is way better than whatever factory we're going to make. The factory that's already there, the living organism that's already set up to produce these things, and we're just slightly changing the thing that it is that's producing. Oh, that's way better than trying to, because if you think about it, how would you make you have to go by chemical processes, right? You'd have to make it sort of chemically, but it's going to be really hard to make something chemically without any it'd be really difficult to make a sort of biological product chemically without any influence from any sort of organism there, because necessarily organisms are just really bloody good at producing biological products because that's what they do. So I mean I get it, but it's it just wouldn't. I don't think we'll ever really move away unless there's some weird quantum mechanical thing that I have no idea about that makes microbes obsolete when it comes to the production of products. I mean, so much of what we do is built on it's just built on the top of microbes making stuff, Yeah. Because it's cheaper and easier, and they're doing it better than we could anyway.
Yeah.
So it's just something I find really interesting because I feel like people don't know how much we use living things. You know, it's like, oh, we've got so much technology. Yes, a lot of our technology is just making natural stuff do what we want it to do. It's like we don't actually make a lot of our own stuff. We just trick or like genuinely alter genetically, you know, microbes to do it for us, which I think is fantastic. But yeah, no, because of this process being so labor intensive and whatnot, it is kind of an issue, right? You know, if you want to make antivenoms for profit, that's rough, isn't it? Because, you know, sub-Saharan Africa is where I think where antivenoms are kind of needed the most right now. It's where there's a massive shortage of antivenoms across the world, and they're really needed in places that are warm, that don't have a huge amount of, you know, money for the refrigeration necessary. They don't have the infrastructure necessarily for the refrigeration where these things are needed. I'm not saying all of sub-Saharan Africa doesn't have any refrigeration technology or whatever.
There are no fridges.
Yes, that is a claim that I have made on this podcast. No, but my point is that obviously, you know, if it needs to be stored at a really low temperature constantly, it costs money to make, it takes time to make, all of that sort of stuff. So it then results in, you know, companies being like, oh, well, we're not making a huge amount of profit from this. Like, for example, Pfizer being like, nah, we're going to discontinue this one because it's not making enough money. And that's a real problem. How do we solve this problem of companies owning specific processes, you know, for making life-saving things? How do we incentivize companies to share their life-saving thing with the people whose lives are being lost without it? How do we do that? It's just...
Well,
any ideas?
I mean, how do we do it? How do we do it? Would be with massive like government subsidies and like financial incentives. How we could do it is just saying it's not your patent anymore. So if you're not going to use it, sorry. But we probably don't do that. We probably just give them loads of government money.
Yeah, that feels like keeping people hostage. That's what that is.
Yes.
That's what that is. Capitalism. You knew it was coming up.
We got there in the end. It took us 50 minutes.
Let me just put this in perspective, though. So, this is from Mike Tugger, or Tugger, I don't know, Touger. He's an emergency medicine specialist at Jacobi, which is that Brooklyn hospital that deals with snake bites that I mentioned. Now, they've paid as much as $16,000 for a vial of Crofab, which is a specific antivenom, obviously. Now, if a snake bite needs antivenom, you need about 20 to 25 vials. If you've paid $1,600, you know, $1,600 for one vial, it could be, let's just say it's $1,000, right, for a vial. Now, some dude got bitten by a snake that stopped his blood clotting. So he was bleeding out and had to be given more vials constantly because they could not stop the flow of blood. So he went through 30 vials of the Crofab. So that's about 30K.
Right.
In 3 weeks.
Great.
$10,000 a week. Now that's for the one bloody person. Now, as I said, no one has died. No one has died in that hospital since 1981. But that's only because they've got the antivenoms on hand.
And this is in the US, so
that's in the US.
Is he having to pay for those vials? Because it's private medical care.
I have no idea how it works, man. Yeah. 30,000 is probably like, I mean, there's the insurance companies, what they charge the hospitals and what's actually charged to the people. They're all different numbers, okay? It's a lot of fake nonsense so that like, oh, we're giving you a discount, when actually what you're doing is you're just taking it down to the actual price it should have been and making a fake price that's high.
Breathe.
Maybe healthcare should be separate from this whole silly game that we have of you have to do things to be able to survive. That's it. Like that's what capitalism is. You need to do things to be able to survive. Even if you can survive without doing things, we've got ourselves to a point where, you know, you need to do things to survive. So do pretend things that don't matter. Then people will die because some people want to have bigger numbers on their phone.
Big app number.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, that's how antivenom's made. That's why there's a global shortage of antivenom, not because, you know,
there aren't enough horses and snakes.
Yeah, it's not because, I mean, it is labor intensive to produce snake antivenom. Absolutely worthwhile, I reckon, if 100,000 people are dying from snake bites worldwide every year. Just have a lot of antivenoms on hand. Let's just do that and people are better off generally, right? That's something where I think we can funnel a crap ton of money. Do it not for profit or whatever, right? Economists and like little capitalists can be like, oh, you're great, you don't understand the. Just take all the just take money from people's bonuses. Just stop people making profits when they don't need to.
But how will you get them to work, Corey? Anyway, let's not get into this. I mean,
lots of ways.
No, I don't want to have an economics conversation.
Lots of ways.
No.
No, so there's also, I mentioned Bill Hast, right? The snake wrangler who got bit on the finger and couldn't wrangle snakes anymore. Now, he is brilliant. In 1948, so I want to set the sort of scene here, right? He could milk 100 snakes per day with his bare hands. That's insane. 100 snakes in a day? That's mad. With your bare hands? And if they bite you, you're toast. Especially because we don't have antivenom, because you're literally trying to make the bloody antivenom. Mad. So what he did was he started injecting himself with diluted cobra venom in order to develop a resistance to it, which it sounds insane. Again, like this sounds like pseudoscience. No, that's literally how it works. You just inject yourself with a little bit of cobra venom and increase it over time. You build up a resistance to it. So it says at the time of his death, he died, by the way, in June a few years ago, I believe. At the time of his death, he he had survived 172 bites from many of the world's deadliest snakes. It says a blue crate, a king cobra, a Pakistani pit viper, survived all of those. And he also would fly around the world to give people transfusions of his blood, which had the antibodies in, so that they didn't die.
Did he happen to have that incredible blood that everyone can have?
I have no idea. I bloody hope so.
Yeah.
But apparently he saved 21 snake bite victims. So this is according to his wife. All 21 people survived. But apparently he traveled around the world to give his blood to different people.
I want to watch a story like about his wife, where like you're the wife of the guy who sits with snakes all day, milking their fangs for venom, and then occasionally you go, honey, I'm flying to Guatemala. A woman has been bitten by a snake.
Yeah, it's
wow.
Like, I'm genuinely surprised the bloke had a wife, because like that's the kind of singular focus where it's like he's married to the snakes, you know, that's his thing. Like,
I'm married to the cause.
But it's also making me feel like, why am I not just injecting myself with snake venom every day?
Yeah,
because I need to prepare for that when I'm inevitably trapped on a desert island and need to survive, right? Like, that's going to happen at some point. Okay,
so in our socialist utopia, we're all assigned one snake venom. And we all have to like just inject like a tiny bit of that every day. Enough that it's going to make us make antibodies, but not enough that it's going to be dangerous to us. Like, why not?
Just add it into the infant vaccine.
Oh, God, no. Corey, you're going to start a conspiracy theory. But like, if we all had one each, and then every town would just have like a vial in the form of people.
Yeah. Oh, that works,
yeah, I mean, you have to milk a lot of snakes, but at least you get rid of the horses and you don't have to store it at freezing cold temperatures.
Look, I feel like that's a socialist utopia that we have. That's a pipe dream.
It was
let's let's make it work for capitalism.
Okay.
Let's just find a group of black people. No, that doesn't need to be black people. Could be Native Americans or, gosh, some kind of Hispanic people that no one cares about. Probably, most of Asia. Just choose a group of specifically not white people, and just use them.
I think. What about you? You don't get your UBI unless you inject yourself with snake venom.
UBI isn't very capitalism. I'm trying to make this work in our system. Luke.
Oh, okay.
Trying to make it work in our system.
Right.
We just choose a minority that we don't
care
about, and that no one's going to care about, and just do it to them. Bonus points if they're undereducated.
Stop.
I see what you're saying. How do we make sure they're undereducated? Well, what we do, Luke, is this thing called redlining, and then we also make it so that school funding comes from property taxes in the catchment area of the schools.
Right, yeah.
Right? So, we're not doing anything wrong. It's just the schools where they live, and we're just choosing this specific neighborhood to run our snake experiment.
Wow, there are some people who really do think like this. Like every day, they just think exactly like the joke you're making.
Yeah, and I need to be clear, I guess, that it is a joke. I feel like I say things like this as a joke, but it's too real for some people, and they don't know that I'm very much joking. I'm not saying that we should find some minority, and not just one, a group of minorities, and pull a Tuskegee syphilis or a invention of the pill, or
lots of other things,
any number of other horrible experiments that we've done on people. Jesus Christ. It would work, though. Also, it would work. And so capitalists, hey, Why don't you do that, but with consent? There you go. Boom. So that is how antivenom works. That's, all of that sort of stuff. Now for, I guess, what I have in my notes as the antivenom conspiracy, which we've kind of already covered, which is essentially that we don't have enough antivenom, it seems. By the end of the 20th century, antivenom manufacturers began to dwindle worldwide due to complexity of production, high production expenses, and lack of lucrative market. So there's a massive increase in price, decrease in availability. And it says here as well, meanwhile, untested, unethically produced or fake products have entered the market. The population is hardest hit by the shortages of antivenom, which is included in the World Health Organization's list of essential medicines, live and work in rural areas of less developed nations where highly venomous snakes are endemic. Endemic meaning...
in that place.
Yeah.
Well, the place in that place.
And it says that experts apparently say that, that if you establish production in developing countries, introduce new methodologies to reduce costs while further increasing the quality of products, and apply state-of-the-art technologies to abolish the use of animals in antivenom production, that would increase the antivenom supply. There's no money, so people don't want to do it. It's ridiculous. If you were listening to before this and you were like, hey man, capitalism is maybe all right. These leftists are a bit full of nonsense, aren't they? This is a direct result of capitalism. A direct result. There was not enough money to produce an essential medicine, and so they decided to just stop.
And the only inputs were like horses, snakes, and human time. It's not like it's really, really complicated. It's like, obviously, I know there's this stuff where you have to like separate it, and I know it, but it's like the main inputs are horses, snakes, and human time. We have a lot of those things.
I mean, look, this could be me Dunning-Kruger, like doing a Dunning-Kruger sort of thing.
I'm sure we are.
No, I mean, and I want to be clear of what I know and what I don't know here. I'm sure it's more complex than it seems. There's going to be things that I'm missing, but fundamentally, just injecting a horse with the right level of antivenom, that's relatively easy. The bleeding, like there are things that can go wrong in the process, but even the like freezing the antivenom and separating it out, you're centrifuging it. Like that.
Yes.
It's not terribly difficult. Like you do that in lab tests like all the time. Like all of this stuff. It's like it's not. They're not necessarily relatively, I guess, difficult processes. They are, but relative to other similar sort of things, they're not. To my knowledge, it's not vastly more complex, than producing another similar thing. I just don't see why we can't just funnel a shitload of money into this, just so that we have a world where people don't die of a very preventable thing. Oh my god, why am I laughing at this? This is genuinely horrible. So the World Health Organization says quite a lot about this as well. It says, a direct quote, "For more than 100 years, the mainstay of primary treatment for snake bites has been the administration of antivenoms. They work by blah 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 blah. However, the potential antivenom treatment to significantly contribute to effectively controlling the burden of snake bite morbidity, disability, and mortality has been limited by a number of factors." Here's what the World Health Organization says. "Poor regulatory frameworks for antivenoms. Inadequate investment in research and development that would lead to improved product safety, efficacy, and clinical effectiveness. Absence of minimum specifications for neutralization of overall lethality and specific toxic activities of antivenoms. Traditional belief systems that associate snakebite envenoming with supernatural rather than health-related events. Sustained erosion of confidence in antivenom products due to poor training of health workers, marketing of poor quality, unsafe, or ineffective products, and other factors. Health system weaknesses. Inadequate infrastructure, inefficient distribution of antivenoms, and a cycle of consequences driven by low investment in procurement, poor quality, and specificity of some antivenoms, which erodes sales, drives down production, curtails profitability, drives up prices, and drives down accessibility, which perpetuates market decline and drives manufacturers out of the antivenom supply sector."
Hooray!
The free market will solve all of our problems.
Absolutely, it will, and will forever.
I'll tell you, look, I had a big old problem with people having access to good and effective and safe antivenoms. But thank bloody hell, the free market stepped in and made sure that those weren't something that could...
Small government now.
Oh my gosh. That's the science of antivenom. There you bloody go. The reason that I wanted to do this is because I was like, how do antivenoms work? And I looked it up. And then I found out that we're just not doing the thing because money. Which, okay, sure. That's the episode.
Well, what a bleak end.
Quick fire quiz.
Quick fire quiz. Dun 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 dun. Chompy chompy snaky bites. No, sorry. Dun 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 dun. Anti-venom edition.
So the rules for the quick fire quiz are the same as always. I'll ask one question. That's one question between you and the audience, Luke. If whoever answers it first wins. If you answer before Luke, you win. What do they win, Luke?
A $10,000 vial anti-snake venom.
There is a reason that this podcast can't afford anything. We're hemorrhaging money. And you need to stop buying snake venoms. I've told you, we don't have snakes here, Luke.
Okay, you win a little snake to milk. But I'll decide the snake. I'll find the cheapest
is that your snake? No.
I'll just find the cheapest
You're
snake.
going to get him to milk your snake? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, Corey, ask the question.
So the question is, what decade was antivenom invented?
Oh, Lord. Have you got it? 1903? 1900s? 1900.
Wrong. I'm sorry. It was the 1890s.
Oh, 10 years off. Did you get it? I hope you did. I've got a snake for you to milk.
Well, before we go, we'd like to thank all of our patrons with an extra special thank you to exec producers Danito and Glitchrabbit, and thank you for watching. You can find the full reference to this episode down in the description. Subscribe to new episodes every Sunday. And leave us a nice week comment. You can support the pod at patreon.com/SciGuys, or you can find and contact us at SciGuysPod on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and at SciGuys on TikTok too. Or you can send us an email at sciguyspod@gmail.com.
That's sciguyspod@gmail.com. Sciguyspod
at gmail.com. You can follow me at NotCorey everywhere.
You can follow me at Luke Cutforth everywhere.
Goodbye.
Go away.
Sleep tight. And don't let the snake bugs bite.